Without further ado, I'm ready to start our first panel discussion on the future of retail. Consumer behavior is shifting radically with the rise of e-commerce and new technologies. Physical retailers need to present shoppers with personalized encounters, immersive experiences, and create memorable, social, emotional experiences that delight, enrich, and intrigue the customer. So how will stores of the future captivate the consumer? To discuss this question, I'm pleased to welcome three leaders from three of my favorite retailers around the world: Leclerc in Paris, the Lane Crawford Group in Hong Kong, and Aesop, based here in Australia, in Melbourne. Armand Hadida, to my left, founded Leclerc in 1980 in Paris in a tiny boutique measuring only 28 square meters. It soon became an international destination, pioneering the retail concept of mixing interior design, furniture, and fashion. If any of you have been there, I'm sure you'll agree with me, it is a retail experience unlike any other in the world. Kim Bui Kollar comes to us from Hong Kong, where she is Director of Fashion and Special Projects for footwear, accessories, and handbags at Blitz and Lane Crawford, a leading retailer and distributor of luxury goods in Greater China. And Michael O'Keefe joined Aesop in 2003 as CEO and has led the transition of the skincare company from a wholesaler into a global retailer, launching its standalone signature concept in Melbourne and opening more than 120 stores in more than 18 countries around the world. Thank you, all of you, for joining us to discuss this meaty topic. And I wanted to start actually by just asking one simple question as we think about the future. And maybe, Armand, we can start with you. But as you think about the future of retail in the context of an industry that's being shaped by technology and globalization, what is the future of retail? When you look ahead, what will retail be?
I can talk about my experience with the physical retail business. And we know how we are learning every day and how we are fighting since those last decades to work to be different from all the other competitors and to deserve the visit of our consumers. It's a duty for us to always think how we can deserve those people and to bring them in our little space and to give them this chance to still always coming, pushing the door, and enjoying their shopping. The most important, and for me, the only recipe who was really the key of this experience is always to do this sacrifice and not to think only about commercial approach, but something more creative. Always mixing the fashion with other things, because everything around us is about fashion, design, and silver glass, and glass silver. Everything is about fashion. And we learn, and we are always pushing this experience. Still, our last one was 3 years and a half. It's to say, impossible to follow this old recipe, because I think it's the time now to break the mold. This heritage from the retail experience, it's at the end. The retail concept store, department store, start around the 15th century with Jacques Coeur, who was someone supplying the French, the king French, and all the palais, the chateau, and also the aristocracy and the bourgeoisie. So this was the first experience, because he sent many people all around the world looking about the glassware, or looking about the fabrics, looking about everything in the world. And he brings this in Paris. he stocked this in Paris, around Paris, and he was supplying all those people looking. So we cannot follow this idea because I think the normal physical store have to change, have to be totally different for the future because the consumers today don't want to follow those rules from their father, their old brothers even. They need to have something made specially for them. So this is the real question. How can we supply those young consumers? Because it's our next target, it's our target today. And our last experience was to do a space who called L'Éclaireur. We made it in Paris, and, but without clothing. Why? Because we really were looking to surprise, to make the people surprising. Coming in the shop, in the store, but nothing physically present on the display. We present something totally different, design, and some fragrances, some accessories, but we start to use all the new technology, and we make this, we build this bridge between the classic store and the e-business. This is an experience we had. And we are ready to follow this experience. I think it's one of our last thing that we play with. But the future, of course, it's always a future for any experience. We just have to be involved in that propose and to bring some new idea. And what we learn, it's although young consumers today want really to have their own codes. They need to be in the special spaces for them. We need to talk and to anticipate and to talk their language. So this is one of the key also, to be ready for all those sacrifice and to make them dreaming, surprising, even shocked. It's also a good thing. But they don't want to go following the old codes from the older people than them. They really have to create this new community, this new...
So Armand's painted a picture of the future of retail and serving a younger consumer empowered with technology. Kim, what are your thoughts as someone who's worked in this space for a long time? And Lane Crawford, for those of you who haven't been, is one of the most lively and beautiful retail experiences on the planet. So how are you thinking about the future?
I think, when I think about the future, I think of 4 different things. So I think about emotion, creativity, authenticity, and discovery, right? And these things, I don't think are necessarily so easy to make impressions through just a device alone, right? So there requires a degree of thoughtfulness and also intuition that's involved. Like we've been toying with the idea of like the store is not just about selling things, it's how we're engaging with the public. I mean, ultimately, the 4 things I listed before ultimately should lead to a unique experience for our customers that come in, but also for us. I can list some examples that we've done. I think that could be really interesting, and there's some really interesting learnings through that. So there was a project that we did with James Jean several years ago. He's a comic book artist turned fine artist. For most of us in the fashion industry, we know him as artist that did the lovely fairy print for Prada.
For Prada, yeah.
And we commissioned him to do a series out of, he works with 2 themes, nymphs and fairies. So he did a special nymphs series for us, and we made fashion product out of it, because we love doing that. But what was really, really interesting is that he came into our Hong Kong store in Canton Road, where we have a room made of glass walls. And he did a live installation, and he painted the entire glass walls with the vellum series that he had created for us. And this was streamed live on Hypebeast. I think this speaks about just a general personal curiosity people have about how things are made and to see things made. And this, I think, was interesting because we were seeing things made, art made, live for everyone. So this marks a unique experience, right?
And Kim, how does that, how does something like that, which sounds like something really interesting to watch, how does that actually translate into deepening your customer relationship or driving sales?
Well, I think it is a conversation that you have, because we are also, let's not forget, and we definitely work with this mindset that we are consumers too. We are curious, we love creativity, we want to be surprised just as much as our customers. So I think that kind of drives what we do and how we curate these experiences. It's not just commercially driven. Right.
Michael, you offer an interesting perspective on the future of retail as well. Having, as I mentioned in the introduction, having scaled Aesop from what was a very much a local wholesale-focused business into one that's now a global retailer with over 100 stores. As you're thinking about this experience, how do you think about the future of retail? And in particular, balancing the kind of symmetry of the experience across Aesop stores, but also providing something special that's related to the cities in which you're present.
I mean, I agree with the other panelists that, firstly, I think physical retail isn't dead. That, physical and online worlds will just coexist. And, there's a place for both. And consumers will just have different journeys online and in physical. And I think, it's not just one or two journeys. I think the multiplicity of interactions that customers will have will just increase. I think in the past, to an extent, many of us retailers have had it too easy, and retailers could just really survive on product alone. And particularly here in Australia, where we're in the southern hemisphere, and so we had a natural barrier which was geographic. Almost, product alone with trade barriers and things like that was enough to attract customers. I think moving forward, that's finished. If you're just competing on product, unless it's price, then you're competing against the Amazons of this world, and you're going to be beaten. So I think retailers, the onus on retailers or the pressure on retailers is that much greater. And I think it's really a mindset from a product-driven business to really a service-driven experience and business. And I think the panelists are right in terms of how do you really captivate and really connect to that customer wherever he or she is around the world. I think the other thing is that we also had it very easy in terms of just this mass opportunity of getting one concept and just rolling it out. And I think increasingly customers around the world and communities around the world are saying to retailers, what are you going to add to our community wherever you are? I don't care whether you're a local sort of, local brand or retailer that's within the community or a global brand, but you've got to add something to our community. Or, what's really your point of being there? And I think, again, too many retailers just sort of took that for granted. And, there's this concept of giving and taking, and I think too many retailers were takers. And I think moving forward, that's going to be really important. So for us, products are at the heart of what we do. And without exceptional products, you don't have a business in retail. That's a given. But I think it's moving from sort of a sufficient aspect for success to it's necessary but not sufficient. And I think on top of that, particularly customer service and that engagement is really, really critical. I think the whole, people were talking 10 years ago of retail theatre. To me, that's a really poor concept. And theatre means that, the customers or your consumers are sort of standing back looking. And maybe that's okay if it's Disney stores or something like that. But I think, what it's about is a immersive experience that your consumers or your customers, really go away remembering. Mm-hmm. I think, for too many of us in retail, how many of our customers actually remember, really with some sort of pride, the last customer experience within our stores. I can remember often hotel experiences, I can remember restaurants. I think hospitality do it fantastic. But retail, I think, has really got to grab that by the mantle again and, really connect.
So you've all raised, I think, some really interesting themes that I'd love to explore. I've heard the power of emotion. I've heard about the customer journey and omnichannel. Heard of the power of discovery. Let's start with the customer journey, because I think of all the things that have really radically changed in light of this new digital world we live in, it's the customer journey that's changed the most. In the past, basically, either PR or advertising would drive people to a store, and it was a pretty clear, direct relationship between the two things. Maybe not super easy to measure, but the goal of advertising and PR is basically to drive people to buy products in stores. That journey is now completely shifting. And maybe, Michael, you could talk to us a little bit about what you see as a type of journey that a typical Aesop customer might be having now in terms of discovering your brand, engaging with the products, and then finally making a purchase.
Yeah, I think you're right. It has moved from almost these separate linear journeys that a customer would take, whether it be physical or digital, to almost this interwoven mesh that, with us, they might see us in a restaurant or at a sponsored event. They might use the product in, a friend's bathroom or something like that, or they might see it on Instagram or whatever. But, I think it is this mesh where it's almost just drips of customers from all sources. And I think no longer can you say, well, there's this one dominant source, and be that PR, or be that celebrity endorsement, or be that print advertising, or whatever it is. I think increasingly it's just this interwoven mesh. And I think the thing for retail is that the challenge is that when that's really effective is when it's an authentic mesh to your brand or to who you are as a retailer. So with us, we have a great association with arts and culture and architecture and design and that. So much of that surrounds that. And when we enter a market, Aesop becomes a little bit like a dog whistle brand that, you either hear it or you don't. And if you hear it, you will see us in the right publications, in the right hospitality, in the right events, in different things. But we're very directional in that regard. Now, as the business grows and builds out, that sort of widens. But at the same time, we're very clear that we don't lose that direction and suddenly try to be everything to everyone, because then you're just nothing. And I think that often happens with retailers as well. Mm-hmm. They get scared by scale, and they somehow have to think that the message has to be dumbed down or the message has to be changed somehow. Mm.
I mean, Armand, with Leclerc opening the first one in 1980, you've been witness for several decades now about the changing nature of the consumer. How does a consumer discover Leclerc now, and how does that differ from what Michael was just telling us?
Yeah, you are talking about the golden age. The 80s was so easy for the fashion system. Everybody was looking about discovering fashion, but the mass didn't know nothing about fashion. They have to read the press, they have to read the magazine, and it was not a culture like today. Today, they can discover everything on time, the show. They don't need to read the magazine. They can see all, not only, even not more. The things are going so fast than even internet today. It's the past. If you talk about the future, today it's Instagram. Yeah. Tomorrow, 90% of all the purchases will be made by the phone. Yeah. In the next 10 years, the phone will be that means Instagram and maybe the newest also kind of proposed. But 80s was so easy. The market was blooming. Yeah. And consumers were looking about some fast fashion, and the creative collection came, changing all the models, all the paysage, if we can say it in French. And
the landscape.
And we had to really to build and to coach those people to this special fashion creative with the designers. I remember we introduced brands like Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, so many other brands. It was the first collection of those company. But the 90s changed all the landscape, and the power go to those big companies. And it's funny because the power after changed the hands and go after to Zara and H&M, who killed the fast fashion, the old system of the fast fashion, and bring something with the so smart marketing, working with all the designers, giving a credit. It's all about the credit. Even if you copy, but you have on your side and you have a communication with Lagerfeld, Riquet, Albert Elbaz, Comme des Garçons, all those people giving a credit to your company, it's not more ashamed to go to buy at Zara, H&M. It makes you normal consumers. So everything changed. And today, when you talk about the fashion, it's important really to understand for some people here, maybe not everyone knows the families of the fashion, because you have the commercial, you have the fast fashion, you have the commercial, the creative, and after you have the couture. So the creative is the most risky business. If you talk about, when you ask what will be the retail, the future of the retail about the creative, it's hard. And you can see. I'm talking about the physical. It's very hard.
When you say it's hard, why is it hard?
Hard because the risk is always, you never sell more than 50% of all your inventory.
Yeah.
And this is not today. It was always like that. Yeah. And you cannot survive if you want to be a purist, like really the best ambassador for the creative teams. You cannot survive. And if you see today, all the website, all the business, they're not showing only the creative people. They extend all the offers with the commercial, with everything. We cannot talk about a website offers with a very high level and creative and selective. No, they need to make a business and numbers, so they extend their offers. Mm-hmm. And so today, this business, I remember Joyce Ma for Joyce Hong Kong. She was the queen of all this part of the world, introducing all the best brand in Asia. And I remember her on the late 90s, talking with her, and she was telling me, Armand, I don't understand what's happened. The marketing is coming so hard, so difficult, and we saw after the result. Yeah. You can see all the multi-brand stores in New York, London, Paris, they all had very hard time because it's not easy business. If you want to make it in an easy way, you have to come commercial. So that's why it's very delicate. When you were to choose something very selective, it's not easy to drive.
So I have another theory as to why that model is difficult, the multi-brand model, because it largely operates using wholesale. And if you look at the dynamics of the business as it's working today, the wholesale model is particularly challenged. It depends on getting great sell-throughs. The margins are much slimmer. The risk lies with the wholesaler.
The margin is still the same. It's not a question about the margin because everyone used the same margin. The real story, it's about the collections. How can you be competitive with when you are carrying only 2 collections a year, when you have a big companies like I saw before Zara H&M with 50 collections a year?
So, but is the solution?
How can you bring the customer to you? You are going so slow. You are sleeping in your store, always static with the two collections a year. Now, since 8 years, 7 years, 8 years, they are doing the pre-collections, but it's not even enough. Yeah. We have to follow the American system with 5 collections a year, and in this case, it's more easy. for the retailers and also for the consumer. This gives a reason to the people to go to visit and to say, oh, what's going on? What did you get? What's new? Yeah. We cannot, when you get in your phone all the offers from the website, everything, you cannot compete with, with this kind of business. Yeah. So,
but a counterpoint to that, and one of the things that we're hearing a lot in the industry these days is that perhaps things have been sped up too much in this wholesale model. And what the result of having collection after collection after collection working in a wholesale model is you have all this excess product. And then it all gets discounted. So, one of the biggest challenges, I think, that's facing the retail sector, particularly when a wholesale model is used, is this deep discounting. So how do you balance between having enough freshness and newness on the shop floor while also ensuring that you're not stuck with all this old product that gets discounted and then ultimately dilutes margins?
We for the moment, we use other strategy. We are trying to find some reason to bring the people visiting us. Actually, our experience, we have in one of our location, expanding our business to sell kitchens. Kitchen, but not any kind of kitchen, the most beautiful kitchen in the world.
Okay, so tell us about this kitchen.
It's made with the best material, and it's made for making people dreaming, and you can personalize. It's not for everyone, but we work only with the interior designer and architect for a very special project. Right. And you can make it in copper, in ebony, in any kind of material. Yeah. Okay, you can choose, and everything is possible because we have to say yes to all the requests. This makes the difference with all the other suppliers. And in our kitchen space, we are working with Alain Ducasse because he came and he loved the space, and he said, oh, I want to give my courses here. So can you imagine retail fashion store giving cooking courses to our customer? This is one way to enjoy with the customer, to talk about us, to use this in Instagram. It's a reason to send a newsletter. But it's always around some ideas like that. Then we have to fight and to make the difference. This helps us a lot for our credit, because credit is also necessary for us. And what we have to do today, it's not more selling clothing. We need to sell dreams. Because what we sell is so expensive. It's really expensive. So if you don't give the environment around this, if you don't make the people really dreaming, and you try to bring this emotion and to make it possible, they don't have any reason to buy from you.
Yeah. Emotion is a word also that you used, Kim, and I know that in your work at Pedder Group and Lane Crawford, emotion plays a big part in it. Can you talk to us about some of the projects that you've worked on that bring, particularly around Blitz, which is this really interesting project space that's used at Lane Crawford, partially to kind of provide some engagement and excitement in the store? Yeah,
no, I mean, I think that you don't need to come into a store to buy product now. So I think people are coming in to want to discover things and enrich their lives and be excited. So, we're also seeing ourselves being members of the community. So a project that we had done, I think is a great example of this, is we had been speaking to Friends of the Earth, which is an organization in Hong Kong that is about environmental awareness and initiatives. And we were totally obsessed with Hello Kitty Con and just seeing the power of the pop culture that Hello Kitty had over the community. And we decided to put everyone together and did this whole project that was green. And it was, everyone got involved. It was fantastic. The fashion community got involved. We had designers do amazing exclusive products for us, everyone from Marcus Lufer to Jumi Lim to case scenario, I'm just rattling off a couple names. In fact, I was just in Paris a couple weeks ago, and there's still some items in there, and she's the only other retailer that worked with and wanted this product. I think this speaks of like the spirit and the power of those characters. And then we had a host of activities in store. So for us, the focus was the appeal to kids, because
Kids come with their parents?
well, no, it's about this was really about the cause, like educating up, right? So the kids came in. We had tree planting activities. I mean, this is like a multi-brand fashion retail store, right? So we had kids come in, do tree planting activities. We had someone quite prominent in the community come in and do storytelling activities, reading books like The Earth Book by Todd Parr. We gave out certificates for cool ambassadors. I mean, this sounds kind of funny, but you know, these kids walked away thinking, oh, okay, I've learned that by turning off the light or turning off the air conditioning when I don't need it, or eating leftovers, what those implications mean for the environment, but then also forcing their parents to do that. It was really inspiring to see it as adults, and I think a lot of people were surprised being there to see all this and think, okay, am I really in Lane Crawford and we're doing all this right now? So it's these impressions that we make because we are members of the community, and I think that transcends into...
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting to me is to think about cooking courses, environmental activism. You know, all of this stuff is becoming a part of the way retail works now. And in a way, it feels like a reaction, right? Because if we want to buy something and we know exactly what we want and we know which product it is, most likely many of us will just straight turn, as Armand said, to our phones and just, you know, buy it. So creating a real retail experience, creating a real reason for people to come into the store involves inspiring and educating them and heightening the emotions. But what I'm still struggling to understand, and maybe Michael, you have some thoughts on this, is how does developing that kind of relationship within the community actually translate to business results? I can see why it gets people into the stores. I can understand that, you know, people might post a couple of Instagrams and that some of their friends see it. But at the end of the day, how do you measure the impact? I
mean, I think it's about relevancy. And, you know, part of this is being, you know, particularly in busy cities like Hong Kong, it's being relevant to those customers. And, you know, I think ultimately if you're just a storeroom for a whole collection of products, that's very tough. You know, we increasingly live in a surplus society. People don't need more handbags or more sneakers or whatever it is. But what they, you know, increasingly what they buy at all price ranges, it means more to them. So in the past, it just used to be at ultra high price, you know, someone's BMW or car or whatever it was, defined who they were. Now, you know, it can be the moleskin notebook that someone has, or it could be, you know, it's actually, because, you know, that selectivity of item is really important. So, if, you know, in that world, it's not more choice. And, you know, maybe I disagree in terms of the fast fashion and that, where it's just more. I think actually we have too much choice. And it's like going to a restaurant with 150 dishes. I don't trust that restaurant. You know, what you want is increasingly those 6 great dishes, or those 6 great, you know, that are really going to connect to you. And I think that's where, you know, it's almost a bit of a back to the future with retailers, and having the sales associates or the, you know, your team who can really connect to the customers and really understand, you know, when that happens, I know myself, when I walk in and that sales associate really understands me, I'm very easy to sell to. And I think it's the majority of guys and it's the majority of us out here. But sadly, it just doesn't happen that much. But I do think it is about relevancy, and you either got product that really connects to people and almost forms some part of their identity, or it's just a commodity. And if it's a commodity, then, you know, it's very tough.
So let's turn it around a bit and maybe think about this question about the future of retail in another way. And maybe I'll ask each one of you in succession, starting with Armand. Like, what is the single most difficult thing right now about being a retailer? What's the one difficult thing that makes it harder to do your job?
I want just to follow what you say.
Sure.
What makes the difference makes the future of the retail. So we really, I say it again, he's talking about the restaurant with a few dishes, but even it's not enough. I know some places, I was talking with some people yesterday about those places, very secret. You cannot go secret. Sorry, yeah. For my. I apologize for my English.
It's fine.
And I didn't have a chance to go to the school, so but when you learn in the street and when it's free, it's not always good, high quality. So and I know some places where the chef is not working about the dishes. He's working about the atmosphere, the temperature, the fragrances. And they give you all, for 25 dishes, 25 different decoration in the room. It's only one table with 10 people, for 10 people. So those kind of experience, performance, makes all the difference. And those, if you want even to go tomorrow, the next week, you cannot go. Right. Because you have to wait 3 months to have the chance to have the access to those places. So we have few people in the world who are not talking like you, because you just at the final, what is the result? If we start to think like you, or like in the American way, what we learn in the school, result, margin, result, we can never do our business. It's a question of passion. It's not a question of result or benefits or margin. So it's another kind of business. I'm sorry, but I lost my way.
So yeah.
You disturbed me with this American quotes of results.
No, I mean the reason I bring up results is, passion drives a business. I think everyone in this room will agree that passion is what drives this industry. But for L'Éclaireur to stay in...
What is the most difficult? Yes.
Yeah, but for L'Éclaireur to stay in business for as many years as it has, so what's the hardest thing?
Even if you are very good and you know how to change the recipe and to bring something very personal, and it's not enough. It's not enough because you need to delegate to the people. And the cancer of our retail business in general, it's the people, the salesperson, those people who were never coached for that, because there's no school to teach them how you have to speak this approach, how you have to be very psychologue and very nice, and and also you need to work on your background and the knowledge, everything, because the customer come in the store, they know much better than you. They can talk about fashion 100% better than you. This is the failure.
So
this is the big handicap for all the spaces all around the world. And because all the companies grow up and are opening 100 stores all around the world, they try to find the people but without any credit, without any knowledge. So it's hard if you have the best message. We know, even when you have the best message and you have an ambassador, a good one, if you change only the punctuation of your words, maybe someone can understand in the other way. So how it's important, the communication, it's the spine of all the system. There's no success without the good management and without the control of the communication. The words are so important. One word changes all the situation.
Yeah. Michael, I see you nodding furiously.
I don't think I'm as pessimistic, but I do think, people are key, are key to our business and key to all retailers, I think.
And do you find it just as challenging to find good people?
Look, I think retail as a profession doesn't get the credit it should at universities and just generally in education. I think it's actually a fantastic career. People run their own little business at a very early age, and they're managing people and they're managing a P&L, and it's fantastic. But you know, it is tough. Often you're competing with hospitality. That in places like America, you're where tips are quite important. But at the same time, I think good retailers, and hopefully we're sort of there, or getting there, offer good development paths as well. And it is about developing your people and all. But ultimately, they're our greatest brand advocates. They're I speak to a handful of customers each year. My consultants are in stores developing those relationships every day, and they're representing who we are, and that's really important. And I think often also even the way we incentivize staff and things like that, that all needs to change. I think the other thing that I'd say is just the whole area of integration, particularly now with the digital world. Retailers are still catching up, how that really works. And as I said before, we are, in this sort of different sort of web of, different customer journeys, but many of our businesses are still sort of built with silos and different functions that are responsible for their different areas. And that just isn't going to work moving forward. And again, your internal organisations have to be this somehow interconnected web. And maybe, I'm biased, we're a single company with a single brand, and so, we are able to integrate, as much as possible, and, we're a vertically integrated business, but it's still very tough. It's still very tough.
Kim, from your perspective, the Lane Crawford perspective, what are the challenges that are, plaguing, or the biggest challenge that's plaguing retail from in a greater China context?
Right. So we have been speaking internally. We were talking about emotion, and especially for us, the kind of square footage we have, and being a multi-brand retailer, there's a lot of brands in the store, and how do we we have the privilege of going to shows and seeing these visionary presentations, and we know how it feels and how we're affected by that. And and then after that we go to showroom, and then we do an edit, and then it comes into the store. But that magic, when we see these visions, how do we take that and bring it back into the store for each one of our brands and designers, so that our customer feels this magic too? Because kind of without the magic, it's kind of just stuff. So that's a challenge for us that we are working through right now.
It's one thing missing, actually, it's the education. And I was talking about the salesperson, but even something very important, our system teaching the fashion schools are so old schools, and they even know today to learn the right codes for those young designers, young people, and everything. All the system today have to change, and this is also very important. The young designers today, they learn to work, trying to do a collection, complete collection, and all this is wrong. We are over.
So what's the right answer now for a young designer?
It's, first of all, to explain them, then they have to be bringing their own vocabulary to the fashion system, the fashion language. And it's not the story to do another collection, because there are a million of collections. And I talk like a buyer, and also I'm running a trade show with 750 young designers coming from all around the world. And I see the mistakes. It's not a question of collection, it's a question of one idea, a product. It's more products. Let's focus for product instead to spend my energy, my time, my money to do 35 models different without any connections, but just focus for one style, one model, make it strong, make it personal, make it magic, fantastic. Look about the fabrics. They don't know even what is the fabrics. We have a show in Paris called PV, Première Vision. It's the Bible for all the young designers. They don't have the access for those things. They have to work first for this access to know, to understand. Maybe some days they can touch a fabric and say, oh, this is for me. This is my hand. This is exactly what I was looking for. With this, I can do something magic. But it's a problem of the education. Yeah. They don't have the right education.
So retail sounds, if I listen to our 3 expert panelists, retail sounds like it's alchemy now. There's a bit of magic, there's a bit of cooking, there's a bit of emotion. There's a bit of all of this kind of stuff that adds, that makes something special in the experience. Before we open it up to audience questions, I did want to touch on technology, which isn't something that we specifically addressed. And you know, I guess my one gripe with the way technology is being used in a lot of retail experiences is that it's basically a gimmick. It's a nice PR story. I mean, the number of press releases I get about, I think a lot of people have gone into the Apple store and seen people with iPads and think that that's like, by having an iPad, that makes you somehow technologically sophisticated. I mean, if you were going to talk about one really inventive use of technology in your respective stores, you know, is there something that you'd like to highlight? Michael?
Look, I mean, we're still fairly technology light, and you know, for us, unless it's really going to enhance that customer experience, then I agree, it just gets in the way. And you know, you've really got to question any introduction of technology. Actually, you know, is it for us or for them? And, you know, is it just so that, I don't know, our email databases or whatever are more effective or whatever? Or am I actually going to add something to the customer? I mean, a couple of things for us. I mean, you know, in major capital cities around the world, international tourists are increasingly important. And so where we can, we have iPads with information and brochures and price lists and all of that in multiple languages. I mean, obviously, you know, if we can, we have bilingual or trilingual sales associates, but that's not always possible. But I think communication in someone's own language is important, and technology does give you that. I think also, I mean, we do register 70 to 80% of all transactions that go through the store, and you know, we do find increasingly customers jumping between channels, jumping between cities, and you know, for a sales associate to pull up the information, to know that customer's history, to know, you know, that they're travelling and recommend different products and that, you know, is really useful. And you know, I think again, it's a tool to just help their effectiveness in terms of what they
technology
recommend.
Not as a kind of a gadget or a gimmick, but technology to serve the customer better.
Yeah, I think it's increasingly going to be this subtle backbone behind, you know, it's already in on your supply chain and all of that. But yeah, I think if it's pushed too far forward, you know, I mean, you know, there's certain brands like Apple and maybe Burberry, I don't know, that thrive on that. But I think for most of us, it's how it's effective in the back end.
I can share with you a story with the technology. We were the first store in France in 1981 to work for our own software. The software didn't exist for the fashion at this time. And we had only two very little stores. And we understood that it was important, so this helped us a lot. And 5 years ago, I had a proposition to my team, because we have 6 stores. We had 7 stores at this time. And I saw how the staff, and especially the manager, were always fighting to get the collection. This is me. Oh, I have customer for this. But it was impossible to buy all those collections and to multiply by 6, 7. It was also important for us to give to each destination a DNA with the different selections. And I proposed to my staff to work on the software and taking this example, using this example. I say, guys, actually, this solid is exactly what we can do with all our buyings and inventory. And if we use maybe this virtual part of the glass, and the limit, it's not the glass. It's all around, it's the cloud around. We can do much better to share, and this will help us to share between all the stores.
So one store knows what the other
Exactly.
stores have.
So we have this data, all the photo for all the collections, and we use in all the stores this software also, and this helps us a lot. And no one was believing that it was possible to do this, but of course, the new technology helped us a lot, not only to follow the customers, but also for the functional system of the store. It's fantastic.
Okay. Kim.
Well, there's, I think, two sides to it. One is definitely convenience. We can't deny the convenience. But then there's also, it's been helpful as a selling tool. I mean, it's alleviating some of the work for the in-store staff, but then there's a selling tool. There is, it eliminates some of the error and does keep, because we have several stores, it keeps things pretty consistent in terms of product.
I want to thank Armand, Kim, and Michael for sharing their thoughts with us.